What's up, guys? It's your boy Dekkster here, and we have about 19 new cards to cover, so I'm gonna be going over those. Might be a little faster than normal. I will go into detail on the cards that I find more interesting, but a lot of these don't seem that good, so I won't go into too much depth. Keep in mind, on the 28th, there will be the final reveal stream, and then at that point, I'll review those cards, and then maybe we could start theory crafting some decks, so that's gonna be fun. So as usual, at the end, I will do ratings out of 5 for each card. I'll put a link in the description if you want to jump ahead to that, but let's go ahead and get into these reviews. All right, so we got Bog Slosher, a 3-mana 3/3 Shaman elemental card here with the battle cry: return a friendly minion to your hand and give it +2/+2. This seems really good, and I think the main thing people jump to when thinking about this card is Shutterwalk. And do you really want to run this over Zola in Shutterwalk? I don't think you do. Maybe you try running this in addition to it, or maybe just as a budget-friendly option, seeing as this is rare and Zola is legendary. But it's just like Zola just seems better. It makes a copy, puts it in your hand, as opposed to bouncing it back. Yeah, the +2 stats are great, but you don't really need that in Shutterwalk. Of course, this would be insane landing on a Chain Gang, because that would buff it up real nice. Another argument is, oh, this will be great in Shutterwalk once Zola rotates, but the thing is, when Zola rotates, Chain Gang's also going to rotate. And do you really want this in your Shutterwalk deck when Chain Gang's not a thing? It's not going to do the copies. It's going to be a lot harder for Shutterwalk to just function. I feel like the whole core of Shutterwalk's going to have to change once Zola rotates. I see this mostly seeing play in some sort of elemental tempo shaman, even being able to bounce back like a Firefly and throw that down as a 1-mana 3/4 is going to be pretty good. This thing definitely has its spot somewhere. I just don't think that list is kind of there right now. Maybe it'll see play in some sort of burn shaman as well, but yeah, tempo elemental seems to be where this belongs. All right, so we got Gonk the Raptor, the new legendary druid card here, a 7-mana 4/9 beast, where after your hero attacks and kills a minion, it may attack again. Now this stat line is awful for 7 mana, and the effect is really cool. It's just usually your hero power is going to do 1 attack, and are you going to be able to kill a lot of things that have 1 health? Probably not. Usually around this time of the game, things are going to have more than 1 health. But let's say you have Malfurion down already, and your hero power is going to give you 3 attack. You could smack a lot of things that have 3 health, maybe clean up a board, and that'd be great. You're going to take a lot of damage in your face, but it might be worth it. Maybe you try running this in a odd druid and combined with, just your hero power and claw, you'll be doing some decent damage. Once again, that's just going to be 3 smacking a bunch of things. You're also kind of ruining your Hadronox value because this is a beast, and if you're running this in odd, Hadronox Naturalize is a huge part of your combo and just part of what makes the deck so good. So do you really want to run this? When you res this instead of Hadro, you're going to be pretty salty. So I feel like if this does ever see play, it's going to be in some sort of new big beast druid, but it just seems relatively weak right now. I just don't see this thing getting much play right now. It's just it's disappointing. We got a new common priest card here, a 3-mana 3/3 the Sand Drudge, where whenever you cast a spell, you summon a 1/1 zombie with taunt. That taunt's good because maybe it's going to help protect this thing. Very similar to Teacher, obviously, although we have to consider that the main deck that ran Teacher was Druid. No one else really ran Teacher, and it was very effective in Druid because you had ways to buff up your board, and you had Savage Roars and stuff to hit your opponent in the face, which is obviously great in a token deck. But this is Priest, and I feel like it might be hard to find a good home for this card. Yeah, we got Fungal Mancers that we can buff things up with. We got Elixirs we can buff these dudes up with. But in general, it's going to be a lot harder to get value out of those tokens as opposed to Token Druid. Now, this thing isn't awful in more late game control-y priests where maybe you're just trying to control the board, deal with some aggression. Maybe you slam this thing down, your opponent doesn't deal with it, and then you can use some shadow visions and stuff like that. Just start cycling through your cards and building walls of zombies with taunts to protect your face. So maybe this thing isn't an aggressive tool. I mean, they do have taunts, so if you're playing against Zoo and you're constantly making, a couple 1/1s every turn, it's going to be kind of annoying for them to get through. So I do feel like this card has a lot of potential. I'm just not sure the exact list it goes in, but once again, I'm leaning towards a more defensive control-y priest that's trying to stall for later. And at that point, would you really rather run this than something like a Tar Creeper, for example, where you're going to get a 3-mana 3/5. So we got Mark of the Loa, a new druid spell, 4 mana, and you get to choose one. Give a minion +2/+4 and taunt, or summon 2/3/2 raptors. First thing that comes to mind for me is that it's very similar to Serenite Chain Gang, which would be 4 mana to 2/3s with taunt, where this is 4 mana 2/3/2s without taunt. They're just gonna be raptors. So very similar to, I guess, like a double Power of the Wild, but choosing that option where you make a 3/2. And then the other option where you give a minion 2/4 and taunt doesn't seem great for 4 mana. The versatility is fantastic. I mean, similar to branching paths, you get to choose what's perfect in that exact situation. Maybe you're playing against an aggro deck and you want that health and that taunt. Or maybe you're playing against a slow deck and you want to just jam this thing out for some raptors. It's just that both options seem so meh to me, and I don't think this thing's gonna see play. Although I'm a little bit scared of underestimating choose one cards, because they seem to usually be rather good. We got the Moshogg Announcer, a neutral epic card here. 5 mana 6/5, and enemies attacking this guy have a 50% chance to attack someone else. I believe this has been said to only hit legal targets. I don't see this thing seeing any play at all in standard. I guess in arena it might be interesting, might be fun. Okay stats. It's not going to see play. It's not going to see anything in standard. All right, we got the Undatakah, a new neutral legendary 8 mana 8/5 with the battle cry. Gain the death rattle effects of 3 friendly minions that died this game. This card is insane. I love this card. I think it's one of the most flavorful cards from the set. I do think archetypes are going to be built around this dude because, oh my god, that effect is powerful. The main way I'm excited to use this guy is actually in a control sort of egg mech paladin. So just having your eggs die spawns those 8/8s. So if your opponent ends up dealing with those, dealing with the 8/8 Robosaurs, then you slam this dude, they kill this guy, then you're gonna get a bunch of Robosaurs. Like, this thing is insane in that list, and I'm sure in a lot of other lists as well. I mean, I think a lot of classes aren't gonna use it, like probably not Warlock, probably not Warrior, probably not Mage, but I think maybe a Death Rattle Rogue might have a place for this. You know, those mechanical whelp Death Rattles are huge, and summoning a 1/1 Poisonous Rush is no joke either. In Hunter, there's Abominable Bowman, which I think it might be really good here. The Katharina package, I don't really know if you want to run this with the standard way the Katharina Death Rattle Hunters are built, because you usually only run, what, like 3 to 5 big boys, and by the time you play Katharina, you're probably going to have pulled them all out. So by the time you play this guy, you're really not going to get value out of that Katharina Death Rattle. Also, this shouldn't work very well with Carnivorous Cube because the Death Rattle is gonna kind of be doing nothing. I'm hoping, I'm not sure how this interaction works, to be honest, but I'm hoping if Cube is in your deck, this thing won't even pick up the Death Rattle. Otherwise, it's just gonna, one of your Death Rattles is gonna be useless. Yeah, if this picks up the Death Rattle from Cube, you might not want to run this and Cube in the same deck. In Druid, there's the option of going infinite with Astral Tigers, which is definitely going to be a lot of fun. And of course, it's another Hadronox if you want to do that, which, I mean, having an extra Hadronox is insanely good. But yeah, I think this thing, it's one of my favorite cards. I think it's going to see a lot of play. I do think there are going to be lists that are built around this, and I'm super excited just to see how this thing's utilized. All right, we got Linecracker, a 7 mana 5/10 neutral epic card here with Overkill, double this minion's attack. And honestly, this just seems bad. On 7 mana, I don't think you want to be playing a card that doesn't have taunt in order to just clear into your opponent's minions. You don't want to play this thing without trying to get that overkill. Overkill can only trigger on your turn. So unless there's a way to cheese this out super early, you probably don't want to play this thing. Even in a Druid that's going to ramp out fast, I don't think you want to play this thing and start slamming it into dudes. Although actually it might be interesting in something like an Odd Druid. ramping up super fast, maybe even using a biology project to get this thing out super early. Could be interesting, but I honestly think it's garbage. Probably not going to see plain standard, but I want to mess around with it in Druid, but I don't see it anywhere else, guys. It's trash. All right, we got Regenerate, a new priest spell, 0 mana, restore 3 health. Obviously, this would be great to pull off like a Lyra, just so you can constantly cycle, heal your board up. There's some nice synergies with Auchenized Soul Priest, being able to just slime your opponent in the face, do 3 damage to just random things. Might be very interesting with test subjects somehow. I feel like you just don't want to play this thing in your deck though, because it doesn't do too much and it's taken up a very valuable slot. It also dilutes your pull from a Shadow Visions, unless, you know, this is your deck somehow built around this and you really want to draw this thing over, say, like a Divine Spirit. But you're going to be happy to see this thing off of a Lyra. But yeah, probably not going to see play in an actual deck, in my opinion. All right, we got Snapjaw Shellfighter here, a 5 mana 3/8. Very interesting effect here. When an adjacent minion takes damage, this minion takes it instead. So kind of a taunt, but not really. Maybe you run this in an odd rogue, you're trying to protect your thugs, your Flappy Birds. You play this thing on 5, your opponent really wants to hit that thug. Maybe they even want to shield slam your thug, but instead of shield slamming your thug, they got to get through this bad boy first. The stats aren't terrible, and I don't know, I want to try this thing out in aggro decks, just to protect those key minions. If you can keep a Flappy Bird up, it's gonna be nutty. It's gonna be difficult for your opponent to remove that Flappy Bird, and it might just win you the game. It also enables you to put minions that have high attack and low health, so if your opponent's trying to smack your Magma Rager, instead they're smacking this. Also, very, very important, this thing protects your board from AoE. So maybe this thing's getting more hate than it should be. Gonna wanna mess around with this in aggro decks when you're trying to play around your opponent's AoE. Once again, you expect in that Dragon's Fury on 5, maybe you wanna coin this out, or maybe you have turn 5 before your opponent. Maybe you're playing around that Flame Strike. Maybe you're playing around a Hellfire. This thing might be sleeper good, man. It might be pretty good. All right, so we got a new neutral legendary here. 6 mana, 5/5 Mojomaster Zihi with the battle cry, set each player to 5 mana crystals. Now, obviously, this would be great if your opponent is Druid and they're ramping super fast, investing all that mana in Wild Growth and Nourish, and then boom, you just set them back to 5 mana just as they're about to UI. Of course, this would be great in that situation, but it's also going to be good against any person who wants to use a lot of mana. Like if your opponent's going to Gul'dan, you're getting close to turn 10, you're scared of that Gul'dan, slam this bad boy down, they can't do it. If your opponent's about to maybe Cloning Gallery or something like, you just get rid of their mana. So you can play around any combo that your opponent wants to do. So it's a great anti-combo card. It's a great anti-Druid card or ramp card. Now, at first I was thinking maybe this would go pretty nicely in aggro, but I think in aggro decks, you don't want to play a 6 mana 5/5 if you're playing around opponent's AoE. Yeah, against Druid, it wouldn't be terrible per se, but against a lot of decks, you're gonna set them to 5, which means you'll both be on 5, so the next turn they'll get 6 mana crystals. So you're playing this, your opponent has 6 mana crystals, they're gonna have some AoE coming up soon. They're gonna have a Scream soon, they're gonna have a Flame Strike, they're gonna have a Blizzard. They're probably gonna have some way to deal with this. They could still Spreading Plague after you do this. Stuff like that. It's not gonna be an auto include in aggro. I think if you're trying to play around AoE in an aggro deck, you're probably better off using something like Snapjaw Shellfighter. I think that'd be a lot better if you're trying to play around that Hellfire, trying to play around that Defile. That's going to be a better choice. But if you're trying to ruin a combo, get rid of Druid Ramp, this will be good. I think it's going to see play in more mid-rangey decks and maybe even control decks. In control decks, you can use this to disrupt your opponent, very notably Mecha'thun Priest. If they're getting ready, they've dumped all their hand, they're ready to do their combo. You slam this, they're set up 5 mana crystals. All they can do is heal and take fatigue damage for a little bit. Also very similar to Nerubian Unraveler, which I've been playing in Control Paladin. It makes it awkward for your opponent to deal around Nerubian Unraveler. And would you rather play this over Unraveler? I feel like in some situations you would. Actually, probably most situations, I feel like you would. But Unraveler doesn't see much play, but I don't think that means this is not gonna see much play. Not necessarily a staple, but a very interesting tech card. And I think we're gonna see it around a little bit. We got a new mage secret here. The Epic Splitting Image. 3 mana secret, of course, and then when one of your minions is attacked, summon a copy of it. So this doesn't seem that good in current mage archetypes, you know, like the tempo secret mages that were around when Mana Worm was a thing. I don't think you'd really want to run this. Like getting a copy of an Arcanologist or something is going to be pretty useless. Do you really want to run this in a control deck? I'm not sure. The main place I see this being ran is maybe like a elemental mage, like the elemental big hand mage maybe wants to try this thing out. If you can get this thing to proc on like a Lich King or a, I don't know, Firelord Ragnaros, a mountain giant, it's gonna get insane value. But if it procs on, you know, a Firefly or like a Tar Creeper, it's not gonna get great value. Like a Tar Creeper, of course, it wouldn't be terrible, but you have to have this proc something at least 3 mana in order to get value, and obviously the bigger the dude, the better it's gonna be. Probably also don't want to discover this with that Keysmith girl, the 2/2 body that discovers and plays a secret, because you might end up just getting an extra 2/2, which is not worth. So this might pollute that pool actually. So yeah, I feel like this is a very strong card. I just feel like it might be hard to find the right deck for it. Although Elemental Big Mage is probably a good place to start. All right, we got a new hero card finally. Zuljin, a hunter card, 10 mana with the battle cry, cast all spells you've played this game, targets chosen randomly, and then the hero power upgrades to Berserker Throw, which deals 2 damage now, but you can do it on anything. You can target. It can be minions, it could be your opponent's face, it could be your own face. Now this effect is super cool, super amazing. I'm super pumped to see this thing. Also, if you guys have not seen the reveal video for this, it's very well done. I would definitely recommend checking that out. Just search it up in YouTube. But yeah, I think this thing's gonna see play, especially in a spell hunter. Now there is the drawback that you're casting all the spells randomly. Of course, Hunter's Mark could be bad. Kill Command could end up hitting your own face. Flanking Strike can hit one of your own minions. But there are a lot of good cards, a lot of good spells that you don't care what they hit, such as your secrets, such as your spell stones, such as Animal Companion and To My Side. All those are going to get insane value from playing this dude. The main con about this card is that Deathstalker Rexxar is just so good, so busted right now, that if you get rid of your Rexxar and you play this guy instead, it's gonna hurt your late game. It's not gonna let you have those grindy games that Hunter often ends up winning due to Build-A-Beast. So once Rexxar rotates, this is gonna be huge. I definitely think this is gonna be played in probably most lists. I mean, you don't need to run a ton of spells. You don't need to be a spell hunter in order for this to get value. Obviously in spell hunter, it's gonna get the most value, but you don't have to only run it there. But once again, do you wanna replace Deathstalker Rexxar with this guy? Probably not. Maybe you can try running them both and see how that goes. But ultimately, dumping Build-A-Beast just doesn't seem worth playing this dude. In the reveal video, this dude's using Boomzooka over and over, and I don't think you want to use that card in most hunter decks. If you use Boomzooka once, it's probably going to get okay value, but if you cast it a second time, your deck's probably going to be dry, so I don't think this has too much value with Boomzooka like they were doing in the video. We got a new priest card here, Mass Hysteria, 5 mana, which forces each minion to attack another random minion. So they're just gonna go on an all-out clown fiesta. I definitely think this is gonna be great if you have nothing on your board and your opponent just has a bunch of dudes. You play this against Zoo, for example, or an Odd Rogue. Hopefully everything attacks itself and everything just dies. It's kind of a board clear, similar to Brawl in a way. Although not as good as Brawl probably in most situations, it can hopefully clean up a good amount of your opponent's board. I mean, maybe your opponent has a couple big dudes. Maybe they got 2 Lich Kings. They're gonna kill each other. They're gonna die. This will get a ton of value. But I do think it's gonna be decent in Priest, because Priest usually has to wait until turn 7, and then they start screaming. Once they start screaming, that's great, but they often die before they can start screaming. Unless, you know, like Spirit Lashes can kind of hold them off. So having this at that 5 mana spot pretty good. And I think people are going to mess around with this. All right, we got the Beast Within, a 1-mana Hunter spell here. Give a friendly beast +1/+1, then it attacks a random enemy minion. I don't think you want to be using this early on. Seems kind of bad. I don't really like it. And I'm trying to think of like a best case scenario here. And that scenario is probably going to be if you pair it with Undasta. You can maybe Undasta, hit something, pulls out one of your dudes, and then you use this on Undasta again. It's going to attack another thing, maybe get you another dude. Like, that'd be pretty cool. That'd be some good value. But do you really want to run this in your deck when you can just draw it and it's useless until a much later turn? I mean, it's kind of similar to making your minion rush an opponent. Maybe your opponent has something on the board and you slam down a high main and then you use this, and then your high main's immediately going to attack something. Like, it could have decent value. I just don't think it warrants actually putting this in your deck list, taking up one of your card slots. All right, so we got the Shaman Loa here, Kragwa the Frog, a 6-mana 4/6 with the battle cry, return all spells you played last turn to your hand. Now, it's really easy to get some decent value out of this thing. Maybe you just want a Healing Rain back. Maybe you want a Hex back. Maybe you want a Volcano back. I think it's gonna see some decent value in most Shaman decks. It's not necessarily a staple, but I think you're gonna wanna try this thing out. In Shudderwalk, it might have its place. In a lot of mid-range lists, I feel like you're gonna wanna try this thing out. In Even, I don't feel like it's gonna get too much value out of Even. So maybe in Even you don't. Although getting a Hex back is no joke. And I feel like I also wanna try this out in a Burn Shaman. Although you have to take into account overload. A lot of burn is just gonna be overload, your lava bursts, your lightning bolts. So you have to time this out right. Your rock biters are gonna be able to go back to hand, and those don't have overload. Your earthen mites don't have overload. So, I mean, turn 5, you do a couple earthen mites, you play this, you get them back. That might be just enough to warrant running this. But maybe, you know, turn 7, you have a Doomhammer equipped, you go rock biter, you lava burst the opponent in the face. Next turn you have 6 mana. You play this, you get all those cards back, and then the following turn you just slam some more damage on them, and it's gonna be interesting. I want to see how this goes. And very important is going to be Unstable Evolution. So Unstable Evolution, each time you cast it, this is going to give another one back. So even if you just play this, so let's say on turn 5 you cast Unstable Evolution 5 times, turn 6 rolls around, you play this thing, you're going to get 5 Unstable Evolutions in your hand. That's going to give you a lot of evolves for upcoming turns. So yeah, I think this thing's going to see a lot of play. Really excited about Kragwa. And of course, this also has insane synergy with Zentimo. All right, so we got a new pirate for Rogue here. The Bloodsail Howler, a 2-mana 1/1 with Rush and Battlecry +1/+1 for each other pirate you control. Okay, so a 2-mana 1/1 Rush is pretty bad. 2-mana 2/2 Rush isn't awful, but isn't great. A 2-mana 3/3 Rush seems pretty good. So you kind of want to have at least 2 other pirates on board before you play this thing. So you're probably never really going to want to play this on curve, on turn 2. So it's kind of weird to have this in your list if you never want to play it on turn 2. You want to mull this away. Maybe on turn 2 you Sharkfin Fan and you get an extra pirate. And then on turn 3 you play this guy and clear something up. You might be floating a mana, depending on if you have, you have something to do for 1 mana. But yeah, this card doesn't seem great. Obviously in Pirate Rogue, you're gonna wanna mess around with this thing, see if it's actually good. But I feel like it might be cuttable. Maybe in Even Pirate Rogue, it could be interesting. Turn 1, you have Dagger and you can swing. Turn 2, you Sharkfin Fan, you swing again, your Dagger breaks. Turn 3, you play this thing, you re-Dagger again. It might be good, might be. Maybe Even Pirate Rogue is gonna be serious. Maybe. Or maybe it's gonna suck. I don't know, man. I do want to try it out though, and this will be a card I try out in that list. But it doesn't look amazing. Looks meh. All right, so we got Spirit of the Rhino, the Warrior Spirit, a 1-mana 0/3 with Stealth, and your Rush minions are immune the turn they're summoned. So this is actually very, very good, right? It's also very cheap. It's 1 mana. So the thing about Rush Warrior right now is they're already so good against aggro decks. It's almost like a free win against aggro decks, but against control, that's where you struggle. So it ends up feeling a bit like a win more, card because it's going to help you against those aggro matchups. It doesn't seem like it's going to help much against those slow control-y opponents. Maybe you're playing like an aggro rush warrior and you don't want to run this. Maybe you're playing a mid-range warrior that kind of curves out with Undasta and Akali. So if you can slam this thing out, get an Undasta, get that to trigger, pull your Akali kills something, those guys aren't taking damage. Because if you can get huge overkill value with Undasta and Akali, I feel like that can make you run away with the game. It would definitely help in those control matches. All right, so we got Treespeaker, a new druid card here. 5 mana 4/4 with the battle cry, transform your treants into 5/5 ancients. Now at first glance, this seems great. Turning a bunch of 2/2s into 5/5s, that's huge. That's like level up, right? Except for, it's not like level up, because if your opponent leaves your dudes on the board, you level up, you get to attack with them on that turn, you level up. But here, once you play this card, your treants are not going to be able to attack. And treants are usually run in more like token builds, so the dream is to just have your treants stick for that one turn. If your opponent can't deal with it, you hit it with those roars, you buff them up with the branching pads, and you smack them in the face, and you win. And this is kind of turning it into, make a board of treants, have them stick, play this card, have the 5/5 stick, then the next turn you do your combo and win. So I don't think you really want to run this thing. Maybe it's not going to be played in the traditional token format. It's going to be played in a totally new sort of version. Maybe you just play it a little more mid-rangey. You're not as combo-y. Maybe you're just trying to land this guy on 2 treants. You're not trying to go too deep on a full board, you know? If you landscaping on 3 and your opponent can't deal, and you coin out the Treespeaker, that's going to be a lot of stats on the board. Or, you know, maybe on turn 8, you just go landscaping Treespeaker, and that's going to be an 8 mana 14 worth of stats, which sounds really good, but it's not unheard of for Druid, right? But yeah, I don't think this thing gets play in the current versions of Token Druid, the current versions of Treant, but it possibly has its spot in a different sort of build. I just feel like it might be a little bit too slow. So that's about it, guys. Hope you enjoyed the review. Stay tuned for those out of 5 ratings. Don't forget the final reveal stream will be on the 28th. And then yeah, expansion's coming soon, December 4th. Can't wait for this new fresh meta. Seems like there's gonna be a lot of new archetypes out there. Hope you guys enjoyed. You know, hit that like button, hit the sub. Good luck on ladder, stay hydrated, and we'll see you next time.